Hey there. Man, has it been a long time since I last recorded? That was the very end of July, and to be frank, I haven't touched the game since. This is my first time playing SimCity 4 in, what has it been? Uh, well, about 2.5 months, I would say. Maybe a bit less, but still, it's the biggest break I've taken ever since I first got introduced to this game back in October of 2012. So, man, what there's just so much to say. You already have an idea of what's going on probably if you read the description of the last couple of videos which I will have recently uploaded by this point. Um, yep, those videos were pretty old. They predated some they came maybe about a week before a pretty unfortunate turn of events. Basically, with this region, we had the collaborative plugins folder going from the start, and at the start, we were very hesitant and careful about adding anything new to that folder. I think it was just me and Lausamera that added anything at all at that point, but we really had no problems with the plugins. Everybody enjoyed what we had, and over time, people started to, started to think about other mods that they were used to using, but weren't in the pack we were using for whatever reason. And I mean, you can't really. It's hard to say no when somebody wants something that isn't too big. So everybody kind of started adding their own mods after a certain point, and it got to be pretty informal. Nobody was bringing up what they were adding anymore on the subreddit for the group, and it wasn't too long before something got added that introduced prop box, and that pretty much spelled the death of this region. I was already taking a bit of a break from the game at that time, so I didn't get on with it, but the others, most of them, actually moved on to build another region, which I haven't seen how it's looking in a long time, but I do remember from when I was looking at some of their screenshots that it seemed like they all really stepped up their game, and it looks great. So I might have to get back in on that sometime, but in the meantime, I still have versions of all of the saves and all the plugins for Cabalhacem Bay from before the prop box was introduced. So I'm still able to play the region without any worry of that developing in my cities. And I was pretty bummed about losing this region right as it was, or right as the part of it that I was building was really starting to take shape in a big way. And I would feel bad if I didn't finish a little bit of what I started before I finally say goodbye. So I have a couple cities here that are pretty close to completion: Astoria and Manzanita. In fact, Astoria, the vast majority of the city is pretty much complete already. It's only this part on the west side of the river, which was going to have a pretty different character altogether from the rest of the city, that doesn't have any development on it. So in a way, you could say that the city of Astoria proper is finished, but Manzanita here, which is the first one that I started in this region, as you might recall, the city center itself is the part that's still missing. So there's not any stretch of imagination there where I could say it is complete. And I figure, that's a special type of closure to finish the first city you started, even if none of the others. So, yeah, this is the one that I've decided to focus on. And I'm going to try to complete it now, all in one big blitz. So, it might take quite a long time, but, well, hopefully we can get it done. Alright, well, this is the city loaded up. And, man, I've got to say, after 2.5 months away from the game, just the look of the graphics in action in the game window, it is man, I just love it. Screenshots really don't do this game justice. Videos, they get kind of there, but there's nothing like playing it yourself for just appreciating all of the detail that went into it. Anyway, I figure I might as well start out by giving you guys a look at the city as it stands. So, probably the main feature of it here is this river mouth, and one of the main, or in fact the main, old coastal highway route for the region, which connected all the cities. In the beginning, it passes right through here on a wide bridge. Over on the east side, we have some fairly dense city development that flows seamlessly into La Somera's metropolis of Hawking, which occupies quite a few city tiles over beyond the eastern border here. And it's pretty, yeah, you can definitely see there are a lot of road networks connecting, and they are pretty busy. They get a lot of traffic, which is nice to see. I always love the look of vehicles on the road networks you built. And yeah, I think this is a pretty interesting network too. It splits a lot of eastward routes. Well, not really that many, but I don't know. I just feel like it's pretty conveniently arranged. So no matter which direction you're entering this area from and which direction you're going, there's always a route that you can go to that's fairly direct. Nothing takes you out of your way at all, and yeah, that's pretty much. I'm tripping over my own words. It's been quite a while since I recorded, but hopefully you guys don't mind too much. I mean, the game really speaks for itself in a way. Anyway, west of that bridge, right here, is where the main downtown is going to be, and this was going to be one of the two biggest downtowns I was planning to build in my strip of this region. So I'm definitely going to get some bigger buildings going here, which is pretty rare for me in SimCity 4. So that should be something interesting to look forward to, probably around the close of this episode or series of episodes. Just west of that, we have what I've generally intended to be an industrial district. And you can see that the main old highway route goes from city street status to a modern freeway right there. And man, the freeway system in this region is something that I'm pretty proud of. I might have to do a special video just to showcase all of the unique interchanges that I built over the summer in the region, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. Just me being boastful. Yeah, so anyway, this whole area I want to be generally industrial in character and fading into, lower density, probably lower class residential districts around it. Up here we have kind of a mixed residential industrial area like I was talking about, although a bit heavier on the residential further north. And over here, to the northeast of this main thoroughfare here, I kind of intended this to be one of the oldest areas of the city, and one of the areas where intensive development has been going on for the longest. And yeah, it's probably a good precursor of what the residential areas will look like immediately west of this road and around downtown. Yeah, and then further north across this very long bridge, which was the longest bridge in the region at one time. I forget what I named it, but I made up something special for it. Then we get into this island district, which is really supposed to be very suburban. And yeah, this road is very busy. It's the most direct connection between, what's it called? Not Baltisia, but it's something like Pembleton in Oregon, but it's slightly different. It's Coast Runner 727. It's the Coast Runner city, and yeah, for the longest time it didn't have a highway of any sort, or a freeway of any sort rather, so the main highway route ran along this street, which was developed as a city thoroughfare in its time. Nowadays there's a full freeway that goes through Baltija, and you can take it over a separate bridge there to Pembleton, or Pendleton maybe? No, I think it was Pembleton, because Pendleton is the city in Oregon. Yeah, okay, I got it now. It was Pembleton. So yeah, this road is still the most direct route between this city and also Hawking in the east, and any other cities east of that, really. And yeah, so that's about that. I was pretty proud of how the rail network in this city turned out. I tried to build it hugging the coast, and yeah, it doesn't get as much use as it did at one point, but it felt like a nice gesture, because this was the only way that the Coast Runner could get connected to the main railway network. Actually, I might have built one in that connected to Baltija as well, but that's beside the point. Anyway, I believe there is still some work to do with connecting the rails. Yeah, right here. So this might be incredibly tricky to align. Or, you know what? Actually, never mind. I'm pretty sure that I intended for these railways to end right here, and that's why I have them splitting off as they do. Yeah, that's definitely what I intended, now that I remember a little more clearly. And it's going to provide direct access to a few industrial lots in all likelihood. And yeah, so that's about it for the talking, I guess. I will get started in a moment on the industrial district. Alright, I was thinking I might have to take a break there, because my FPS was going down to 1, but seems to have recovered just fine. So without further ado, let's get building some roads. So let's see, just how flat is this avenue here? And how did I build the road networks over here again? Okay. It seems... Let me just check if I can... No. That's definitely part of the puzzle piece right there. Yeah. Alright, I was just trying to check if it would be possible to make another overpass over there, but it looks like I'm pretty much limited as far as road overpasses to the ones I've already built. So I won't even worry about that. I don't think I'll build any more main roads than already exist in this quarter of the city. So I will just go with a street to go along the middle of this area over here. And let's see, how is the slope over here? I'm probably not improving it by making an intersection there, but it doesn't look too bad. So I believe that is how it will be. And yeah, this street will be probably the only through one in the area. That goes for more than a block at least. Now, over here, I believe I don't have anything on the other side of the tile here, so I have more or less free reign to build the roads up to the edge as I see fit without making anything too silly looking. And for this particular area, I think it would probably look most appropriate if I were to keep it 100% industrial. So I think that's what I'll go for, and quite possibly with a very high building density as well. I think I'll try to fit one parking lot into there though. Alright, so hopefully those zones will grow into something not too unattractive. Actually, this one, 4x5, I don't know how that'll work out. I won't change it until it fails me though. Meanwhile, it seems like it might likely be a good idea to place a few plops, because those really do tend to bring these industrial districts together in a way that growables just can't. Man, it has been a long time since I updated my plugins file. I hear that there's been a lot of good new content released, so I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out for myself and putting some of that into use when the time comes, but I didn't think it was particularly important to do right before starting this city, especially considering that the plugins folder is really, you know, it's a blessing that I have it in the state that I do. I might as well refrain from adding things. Alright, so I won't spend too long looking for things here. At least, I hope not. I know I do tend to do that quite a bit. I want something just a little bit bigger. Yeah, that almost works. In fact, I might want to commit to using that somewhere around here right away. Let me see what the facade of the building looks like. Yeah, I think it would look good placed right there, actually. So, ooh, it looks like some of those parking lot textures are missing. That's quite a shame. Hopefully it's just a bug with the texture pack and they'll appear as I zoom out. Let me see. This looks like a really interesting building, but very small. Very, very, very small. It could work right there, though. Probably put a bus stop right there. Looks like the perfect spot. So I must have something useful over here for this little spot. And sorry about doing this on camera. I mean, I should have guessed my first time looking through the landmarks menu in months. And on top of that, on a set of plugins where I'm not quite as familiar with as the other set I usually use for my other regions. Maybe a high-tech building would look pretty good here. Yeah. You know what? I think that's a keeper. It's a little less empty space than I would have liked to have next to this impromptu rail yard, I guess you could call it. But it'll do just fine. Now let me make sure the public transportation in this area is up to par, so that the job providers over here will be able to hire people who are willing to work for wages that won't allow them to afford cars. And alright, and let's add a little parking lot, because you can always use more of those. Looks like there's a bit empty space over there. For that, I'm not going to zone anything, but I'm definitely going to try to keep that sidewalk. And let me also extend the sidewalk over there. So that's the first little neighborhood taken care of. Now let's get on to the one across the street. And I'm kind of tempted to build a street that runs very closely parallel to the main avenue right there, kind of like that. And it's really not the most efficient design, but I don't know, I like it. And I'll have to probably build another street to provide access to this one a little more directly in a minute. But I'll see where the cards fall before I get around to that. So yeah, this area was supposed to be very heavily industrial. So I think I will continue to zone primarily just industrial zones. maybe I can fit a 5x5 right there. That is 5x5, right? Yep. Over here, a 3x3, maybe a 3x4. And how about a 4x4? Beautiful. Now this might be a good area to have that secondary street I was talking about. Perfect. Maybe we can have a few smaller industrial zones around the center here, coupled with a little bit of residential. I think it'll look a bit out of place, but you know, that often does exist in industrial areas. That there will be a few old homes from the neighborhood's earliest history. So yeah, we'll have them pretty much just sandwiched between warehouses and factories and such, which is really not the most pleasant situation, but it's not the worst in the world either. Now, I could definitely use a couple more factories over here. I don't want them facing the avenue like that though. I'll just leave some clean empty space for trees right there. Then there's space for a parking lot right here. I'll worry about that in a minute. And let's see how the rest of this is looking. I might want, yeah, I think I'm gonna want another parallel street going this way. These are both going to extend forward into this neighborhood on the west side of the north-south connector. And, now for the remainder of this industrial zone, I might as well build a street connection over here. And, I don't know about it. It's a little too rectangular and pattern conforming for my like, but it's not the worst in the world. I think I can live with this. So, maybe then at that point I can have some industrial zones there. Some more facing them, and maybe room for a parking lot in the middle, and then more industrial zones. And over here I'm going to want a mix of the residential and industrial again, and a few parking lots in all likelihood. Yep, that should be a good idea. And then probably along the main east-west avenue here, it'll be entirely industrial zones. So I want to make sure I leave room for bus stops near all the intersections. So I'll definitely do that. Maybe have a couple paired 4x4 zones right there, and a 1x3 just in that slot where it's barely got space. Now over here, maybe a 4x3, that might work pretty well, with a 4x4 facing the other avenue. And I won't zone too much of this area right now, but I really am interested in maybe getting the frontage on this avenue all sorted out as soon as I can. Speaking of which, it could certainly use an intersection to provide access to this neighborhood. So I believe we will have one right there. Let's see how an intersection would look there. Yeah, like I thought, not so good. So this will be the only street that intersects with this avenue. So that's pretty easy to deal with. Alright. Let's just go for manual or automatic zoning in the vast majority of these cases, because it'll look better. Or, well, it might not look better, but man, I'm stumbling over my words. It'll do just fine. Now over here it just struck me that I could have an intersection with this avenue after all, but providing primary access in the other direction. So that doesn't strike me as such a bad idea. I think I will go for it. Maybe just to keep things a little interesting, I will have, oops, a couple, a 1x2, maybe a 1x1 zone right there. Whoops, tapped out of the game by accident there. Alright, so that's enough for this area for the moment. I'm gonna get back to work on the north of the avenue. So, I think it makes sense to have a zone right there, maybe a few right here, and that is almost it. You know what, I'm going to make this entire street heavily industrial. Why not? Alright, so now I'm going to get to work on adding some of those parking lots in before I forget where they're supposed to go. So we could use one over there. I think there was a spot where I wanted a 1x2 right here. Yeah, and we can definitely use a 2x2 over... How about... I think I was going to have one right there, but I also want one over here and over here. And let me see, is there... Oh yeah, there was another 3x3 that I wanted to put in right here. And, let me think a minute. We could probably use another 1x2 right there, but it doesn't look so good. Actually, you know what, we can probably have it. Not like the road will rebuild itself. So yeah, this seems like a pretty good setup. And I will get in on zoning in the rest of these empty spaces as residential areas. And, yeah, I guess there will be nothing facing this avenue when it goes into its steep ascent right there. But I think I do want a few commercial zones around here. It just makes sense, right? Although, perhaps one of the commercial spots Nah, not on this side of the street. So I'll leave spots for, looks like 3 2x2 commercial zones. That should be plenty. Alright. Might as well zone them on in now that I've decided on it. So, with that accomplished, I think it is safe to turn my attention to the south of the avenue for good. And that road will continue as a diagonal for a little bit. And maybe this one will branch over a bit. And yeah, we definitely are going to want an intersection on the 5-lane turning lane avenue here. So yeah, I think this layout looks just fine, personally. I think I'll go with it. Now let me figure out really quick where everything was supposed to go. Alright, I'm probably going to want a very big parking lot right around here. So I'll make sure to start my zones short of that. There'll be a nice strip of trees around here to isolate the neighborhood at least a tiny bit from some of the noisiest industrial rackets. Although, well, it's really in the middle of things. More than it can control with any thickness screen of trees. Okay, so over here it is just about big enough that it looks to be worth it to build another tertiary street. And there will be some empty green areas around that particular corner of the neighborhood, but I don't think that's a particularly huge issue. I'm tempted to put a commercial zone, but something tells me with all the commercial zones I'm planning to put downtown that this small of a residential area really doesn't need its own. So I'm not going to push that. I think instead I'll put maybe some kind of small park, even though that's a very inefficient space for one. And I know I haven't really paid attention to parks so far at all in this recording session. So yeah, that's something I'm going to have to do. For now I'm just going to use a vanilla one because frankly those ones look okay. Okay, so let me just get that one parking lot into place that I was saying I wanted. And that is easily done, of course. And I think it probably wouldn't be a bad moment to start putting in place a couple bus stops. So I will go ahead and do that. Looks like I can clear part of a zone over there. So yeah, the bus stops are going to be very frequent on this particular avenue. Yeah. It's not really the best situation, but it's not the worst either. And over here, I don't want that wooden fence, so I'm going to have to rebuild this. And perfect, got it done the second try. So hopefully that should be a good saturation of public transport, even though they don't necessarily reach into the furthest interiors of the neighborhoods. Well, you know what? It really wouldn't be hard to have them do so. Could probably use a bus stop right there. But that's about it. I don't want to push this. And while I'm at it, I really should get this space, get bus stops put into that space, because it definitely looks like it's going to be the best possible one along this avenue to put them in that area. And am I going to want another set along this road? Might as well, right? Okay. So we will be good on public transport for a little bit. Hopefully they aren't too close together in comparison to how I usually have them. How I have them in the rest of the city. So, what next? I'm not really sure what I was intending to do with these far west parts of the city over here. It is... I think we'll have a few industrial zones in them, and they'll be primarily residential and probably relatively gritty. Although there's only really so... You can only get so gritty when you're talking about an area this small. So I might have another full intersection on the main road over there. Even though it really does mess up traffic to have these unprotected left turns on a road without any turning lanes. But I don't know, I do it almost everywhere in any case. I figure if traffic in the city really got so bad, they could always pave over the median again. Or what am I saying? They could knock out the pavement. So I think what I'm going to do is have a little bit more in the way of grid elements for this part. And then to the south of the avenue right here, I'll try to build a few more curves. So I'll get started on that right away. Alright, so yeah, that seems like a good enough start. Maybe I can build a partial intersection over here. And that makes an interesting shape, not entirely unattractive. Although maybe with another partial intersection, we can make things a little more interesting again. And I don't know, I think that this works pretty well. It is true it leads into a very sharp right turn potentially if you were going that way, but if you wanted to get on to turn onto this road in order to turn north, why would you have gotten onto this road southbound in the first place? So yeah, that's that. I think that these roads should do it. And I've got to figure out really quick before I fill up all the empty space left in this tile exactly where I'm going to need to put my parks. So I have a good feeling that the influence of this particular one isn't going to be stretching any further north than around here. And it doesn't look like I have too many parks immediately nearby in the other urban districts. And certainly there are none over here. Yeah, I could definitely stand to put some kind of park around here, but I think I'll try to not have one at first. I mean, you know, it's nice to have a gritty urban inner city district somewhere in your cities. So yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense to have a nice big park right around the intersection of these two avenues. Maybe at this intersection right here. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. So let me scroll down and try to find something nice. Shouldn't take too long, And yeah, I'm just going to choose something very simple because, well, I've already said it a lot of times, but I'm almost a noob coming back to the game after this long. And I don't particularly want to mess around with any, what do you call them? Any modular parks. Or at least complex ones. So okay, I think that this crossroad does pretty nice to set this little area apart from the rest of the street system in a way, while emphasizing its grittiness. So yeah, I've definitely got to congratulate my own design decision there. Now the rest of this we can pack pretty tight with houses, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, probably want them to face every road though, not just the longer ones, or the longer size of the block, I mean. Now, what are we gonna have here? Maybe some kind of service or some kind of community building would go well there. I don't really want to add more commercial zones in this neighborhood, even though that is really an important main thoroughfare, and it is close to where a lot of people live. I don't know. I really don't want to put any industrial buildings in this particular neighborhood, so I think I might just leave that blank for the... Or, you know what? I keep forgetting that this is supposed to be a big city. I think that an apartment building won't look too out of place. And maybe it could even have its own parking by the side. That'd look pretty cool. A little 2x1. A chunk. I don't know what that sound was. So, okay. And let's get some zones facing that road there. Maybe a few over here. And like that, and I'll have to figure out what's going on along this avenue here. Okay. So yeah, that area looks about complete. For this avenue, maybe it could have one apartment building. But just the one. Yeah. And it's gonna be right there. And I might have to renege on my promise of no industrial... Nah, I think a commercial zone would do okay over there. Nobody will complain too much, right? Huh. Let me see if I can get this parking lot to fit there anyway. It doesn't look too likely. Oh well. No harm done. No foul. So I'll try to get a few trees in place right there in that empty space, just so it doesn't look too out of place, because I might forget it pretty soon with buildings growing up around it. So then down here, I'm just going to do the frontage for these two main avenues right now all at once. Seems like the smarter way to go. I'm going to have some freeform industrial zones over there, and going forward with industrial theme, a couple more right there, and maybe one of that variety right there. That leaves me room for a 3x3 parking lot, which will suit that area pretty well, I think. And then those industrial zones are going to face right away onto residential zones in the interior of this block. So over here, it's far enough away from that park that I think nobody should complain too much if there's a bit of intensive industrial zoning. And I'll leave it all freeform. It should hopefully make it look a little interesting than it might otherwise. Then along the south side, maybe a 4x4 industrial zone would suit that area pretty well. And then a parking lot over on this side. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Put a few more industrial zones perhaps. 4x3. And again, there's not going to be any boundary between that and the residential zones. So, that seems like a pretty good deal all in all. Should be pretty easy to get the rest of this area zoned in nice and smoothly. Although, not if I'm too indecisive about it. Yeah, that looks a lot more promising. That looks like it's facing the right way. I hope it is. Okay. Perfect. So, with that done, all that really remains is the parking lots. That and filling in a few blank spots with odds and ends. So let's get a 3x2 for over here. And a 3x3. And how's about a 2x2? Yeah, I think that'll do, but I do want to get rid of the intersections there. So I can quickly tree this on up. Trees over this side too. And in this corner. Where else is it missing? Oh yeah, of course. On this artificial slope. And the other side could use some sprucing up as well. What more? Down this side. The other slope. Yeah, this will make driving that overpass a lot more pleasant to have those nice trees framing it instead of a bunch of empty space and big dirty industrial buildings beyond it. So yeah, I don't know how much more I can really do for this section of the city before just letting the simulator run. And I do think I'll take a little bit of a break, or at the very least a cut, before I start working on the rest of the city. But in the meantime, I'm also going to take a quick break before I run the simulator. Okay, well, I'm glad I took a cut right there, because it allowed me to save, and, well, I wouldn't want to zoom out and suddenly crash and lose everything I've done today after so long away from the game. But it looks like that didn't even happen. So yeah, you can really see everything that I've done today. I don't know about how proud I am to say that this is the result of over 40 minutes of work. Well, less than that, I guess, because I spent quite a while talking before I actually started playing the game today. But it's something to be fairly proud of for somebody who hasn't touched the game in quite a while. Let's see how it grows in. Hopefully those industrial zones shouldn't be too screwy looking. I don't mind a little repetition here. In fact, that's kind of what I was going for. But too many smokestacks is definitely a problem. So I am definitely going to get rid of some of those, especially near here. And hopefully they won't go right back in. Over there doesn't look too good either. Yeah, we can just give this a little while. Ooh, I really like the look of some of these buildings. Yeah, particularly that blast furnace. Over here, this apartment cube. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll let it stay for now. It looks like those are already getting dilapidated. What a shame. Hopefully they can recover. Ooh, yeah, that one's even worse off. Well, there's plenty of residential zones nearby. Maybe I could take a closer look at demand in a bit and see what the commercial zones grew in as. What's that? Mad Hatter bats. I bet that's worth keeping, even though I can't even really see it from here. Goober's nuts. I think that goes well with the feeling of the area. It's got a nice parking lot in front. So yeah, let's see if the traffic has come on in already. Yep, looks like the data is already in play. Man, just look at the number of people using this freeway. It's actually not that many. It's about the bare minimum for it to show up as red on this volume graph, or volume data view. I've definitely had much busier roads in my time. And yeah, hopefully the rest of these residential zones will come in pretty quickly. If not, I think it might make sense to call it a close for this video pretty soon. I've been recording for quite a while, and I'll probably want to keep on with a little more recording pretty soon, but I don't know. It just seems like a good spot to call it a video. Yeah, this area is pretty rampant with air pollution, as I might have expected, and I bet with the plans I have for how I'm going to zone these areas, it will spread quite a bit, but downtown hopefully should be completely free of it, more or less. And yeah, adding all this pollution to my city, the demand for wealthy citizens has just gone into the toilet. Or maybe it was already that way. Let me check. Oh yeah, it was already way down because I'm taxing them to hell. Too bad for them. Their houses look pretty ugly anyway. But it looks like these high-tech industry buildings have recovered their profitability, so that's good. Over here, this is looking very dilapidated by the rail terminus, but hey, that's what you see with a lot of rail termini, in the US at least, where perhaps the majority of them have been supplanted in their primary purpose. But yeah, I don't think that the rest of these residential zones are going to be coming in the next 30 seconds, so I think this is a good time to call it quits. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll probably be recording the very next one right on the back of this, as I said earlier. But I definitely, or well, I don't know about definitely, but I'll most likely be giving it quite a pause before I record any more about after that, so I'm definitely open to any comments or criticism, really anything to keep me going, because I would love to be able to actually finish this series, even though the region in general is long, moribund. Yeah, so that's about that, and I will catch you in the next video.